Altieri looked at Diane, Kelly, and Greenberg, then turned back to Diane. When he spoke, his voice was hoarse and raspy. "What the hell do you want?" Diane said, "Mr. Altieri, I want you to leave Mrs. Harris and me alone. Call off your men. It's enough that you killed my husband." And Altieri cut in. "What are you talking about? I never even heard of your husband. I read about that bullshit note found on his body." He sneered. "He'll swim with the fishes." Somebody's seen The Sopranos too many times. "I'll tell you something for free, lady. No Italian wrote that. I'm not after you. I don't give a damn whether you live or die. I'm not after anybody." He winced in pain. "I'm busy making my peace with God." He began to choke. The priest turned to Diane. "I think it would be better if you left now." Detective Greenberg asked, "What is it?" The priest said, "Cancer." Diane looked at the man on the bed. "I'm not after you. I don't give a damn whether you live or die. I'm busy making my peace with God." He was telling the truth. And Diane was filled with a sudden, blinding panic. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. On the drive back from Altieri's, Detective Greenberg looked worried. "I have to tell you, I think Altieri meant what he said." Kelly reluctantly nodded. "So do I." "The man is dying. Do you know of any reason why someone would try to kill the two of you?" "No," Diane said. "If it isn't Altieri." She shook her head. "I have no idea." Kelly swallowed. "Neither have I." Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Detective Greenberg escorted Diane and Kelly back into Diane's apartment. "I'm going to get to work on this now," he said, "but you'll be safe here." "In 15 minutes there will be a police cruiser outside your apartment building for the next 24 hours, and we'll see what we can find out by then. If you need me, call." And he was gone. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Dlane and Kelly stared at each other. There was an awkward silence. "Would you like some tea?" Diane asked. Kelly said perversely, "Coffee." Diane looked at her a moment, irritated, and sighed. "Right." Diane walked into the kitchen to start the coffee. Kelly wandered around the living room, looking at the paintings on the walls. When Diane came out of the kitchen, Kelly was studying one of Diane's paintings. Stevens. She turned to Diane. Did you paint this? Diane nodded. Yes. Kelly said in a dismissive tone of voice, pretty. Diane's lips tightened. Oh. Do you know a lot about art? Not much, Mrs. Stevens. Who do you like? Grandma Moses, I suppose one's interesting. And what other primitive painters touch your heart? Kelly turned to face Diane. To be honest, I prefer the curvilinear, non-representational form. There are exceptions, of course. For instance, in Titian's Venus of Robin, the diagonal sweep of her form is breathtaking, and from the kitchen, they could hear the coffee percolating. Diane said curtly, the coffee is ready. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. They were seated across from each other in the dining room, taciturn, letting their coffee get cold. Diane broke the silence. Can you think of any reason why someone would try to kill us? No. Kelly was silent for a moment. The only connection you and I have is that both our husbands worked at KIG. Maybe they were involved in some top-secret project. And whoever killed them thinks they might have told us about it? Diane paled. Yes. They looked at each other in dismay. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. In his office, Tanner was watching the scene taking place in Diane's apartment, on one of the wall television sets. His chief security guard stood next to him. No. The only connection you and I have is that both our husbands worked at KIG. Maybe they were involved in some top-secret project. And whoever killed them thinks they might have told us about it? Yes. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. The Stevens apartment had been wired with state-of-the-art television and sound. Just as Tanner had told his partner, the house was filled with cutting-edge technology. There were concealed video systems in every room of the apartment, with a web-based camera the size of a button resting among the books, bent fiber optic wires under the doors, and a wireless picture frame camera. In the attic, a video server the size of a laptop computer had been installed to service 6 cameras. Attached to the server was a wireless modem that allowed the equipment to function through cellular technology. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. As Tanner leaned forward, watching the screen intently, Diane said, "We have to find out what our husbands were working on." Right. But we're going to need help. How do we do that? We'll call Tanner Kingsley. He's the only one who can help us, and he's trying to find out who's behind all this. Let's do it. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Diane said, "You can spend the night here. Well, be safe. There's a police car stationed outside." She walked over to the window and pulled the curtain back. There was no car. She stared for a long moment and felt a sudden chill. "That's strange," Diane said. "There was supposed to be a patrol car here." "Let me make a phone call." Diane took Detective Greenberg's card from her purse, went to the telephone, and called a number. "Detective Greenberg, please." She listened a moment. Are you sure? I see. Then could I speak to Detective Prijitzer? There was another moment of silence. Yes, thank you. Diane slowly replaced the receiver. Kelly looked at Diane. What is it? Diane said, Detectives Greenberg and Prijitzer have been transferred to another precinct. Kelly swallowed. That's a real coincidence, isn't it? Diane said, and I just remembered something. What? Detective Greenberg asked me if Richard had done or said anything out of his usual routine lately. There was one thing I forgot to mention. Richard was going to Washington to see somebody. Sometimes I travel with him, but this time he insisted it would be better if he went alone. Kelly was watching her with a surprised expression. That's strange. Mark told me he had to go to Washington, and had to go alone. We have to find out why. Kelly walked over to the window and pulled back the drapes. There's still no car. She turned to Diane. Let's get out of here. Right, Diane said. I know a little out-of-the-way hotel in Chinatown called the Mandarin. No one will ever think of looking for us there. We'll call Mr. Kingsley from the room. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. I know a little out-of-the-way hotel in Chinatown called the Mandarin. No one will ever think of looking for us there. We'll call Mr. Kingsley from the room. Tanner turned to his chief security officer, Harry Flint, with the perpetual half-smile. Kill them. Chapter 23. Harry Flint will take good care of the women, Tanner thought with satisfaction. Flint had never failed him. It amused Tanner to think about how Flint had come into his life. Years ago his brother, Andrew, poster boy for the bleeding hearts of the world, had started a halfway house for newly released prisoners, to help them adjust to civilian life. Then he would find jobs for them. Tanner had a more useful plan for ex-felons, because he believed that there was no such thing as an ex-felon. Through his private sources, he would get inside information on the backgrounds of recently released prisoners, and if they had the qualifications that Tanner needed. They went from the halfway house to working for Tanner directly, doing what he called delicate private tasks. He had arranged for an ex-felon named Vince Carballo to come to work for KIG. Carballo was a huge man with a scraggly beard and blue eyes that were like daggers. He had a long prison record. He had been on trial for murder. The evidence against him was overwhelming, but a member of the jury stubbornly held out for acquittal, and it ended up in a hung jury. Only a few people knew that the juror's little daughter had disappeared and a note was left behind. If you keep quiet about this, your daughter's fate will be determined by the jury's verdict. Carballo was the kind of man Tanner Kingsley admired. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Tanner had also heard about an ex-felon named Harry Flint. He had investigated Flint's life thoroughly and decided he was perfect for his needs. Harry Flint had been born in Detroit, into a middle-class family. His father was a bitter, failed salesman who spent his time sitting around the house complaining. He was a sadistic martinet, and at his son's slightest infraction, he enjoyed whipping him, using a ruler, a belt, or anything else that was handy. As though he wanted to beat success into his son to make up for his own inadequacy. The boy's mother worked as a manicurist at a barber shop. While Harry's father was tyrannical, his mother was devoted and doting, and as young Harry grew up, he was emotionally whipsawed between the two. Doctors had told Harry's mother that she was too old to have a child, so she considered her pregnancy a miracle. After Harry was born, she lovingly fondled him and was constantly hugging him, patting him, and kissing him until eventually Harry felt smothered by her love. As he got older, he loathed being touched. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. When Harry Flint was 14 years old, he trapped a rat in the basement and stomped on it. As he stared at the rat slowly, painfully dying, Harry Flint had an epiphany. He suddenly realized he had the awesome power to take life, to kill. It made him feel like God. He was omnipotent, all-powerful. He needed to have that feeling again, and he began to stalk small animals around the neighborhood, and they became his prey. There was nothing personal or malicious about what Flint was doing. He was just using his God-given talent. Angry neighbors whose pets were being tortured and killed complained to the authorities, and a trap was set. The police put a Scottish Terrier on the front lawn of a house with a leash to keep her from running away. They staked out the site, and one night, as the police watched, Harry Flint approached the animal. He pried the dog's mouth open and started to insert a lit firecracker. The police pounced. When Harry Flint was frisked, he had a bloody rock and a 5-inch fillet knife in his pocket. He was sent to Challenger Memorial Youth Center for 12 months. 1 week after Flint arrived, he attacked one of the other boys, maiming him badly. The psychiatrist who examined Flint diagnosed him as a paranoid schizophrenic. "He's psychotic," the doctor warned the guards in charge. "Be careful. Keep him away from the others." When Harry Flint had served his time, he was 15 years old and was released on probation. He returned to school. Several of his classmates looked upon Flint as a hero. They had become involved in petty crimes such as snatching purses, lifting wallets, and shoplifting, and Flint soon became their leader. In an alley fight one night, a knife sliced a corner of Flint's lip, giving him a permanent half-smile. As the boys grew older, they turned to carjacking, burglary, and robbery. One of the robberies became violent, and a shopkeeper was killed. Harry Flint was convicted of armed robbery and abetting a murder, and sentenced to 10 years in prison. He was the most vicious prisoner the warden had ever seen. There was something in Harry Flint's eyes that made other prisoners leave him alone. He constantly terrorized them, but no one dared report him. One day, as a guard passed Harry Flint's cell, he stared inside unbelievingly. Flint's cellmate was lying on the floor, in a pool of blood. He had been beaten to death. The guard looked at Flint, and there was a smile of satisfaction on his face. "All right, you bastard. You won't get out of this one. We can start warming up the chair for you. Flint glared at him and slowly raised his left arm. A bloody butcher knife was deeply embedded in it. Flint said coldly, "Self-defense." The prisoner in the cell across from Flint never told anyone that he had seen Flint savagely beat his cellmate to death. Then pull out a butcher knife from under his own mattress and slice the knife through the flesh of his arm. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. The characteristic that Tanner most admired about Flint was that Flint enjoyed his work so much. Tanner remembered the first time that Flint had proven to him how useful he could be. It was during an emergency trip to Tokyo. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Tell the pilot to warm up the Challenger. We're going to Japan. There will be 2 of us. The news had come at a bad time, but it had to be taken care of immediately, and it was too sensitive to entrust to anyone else. Tanner had arranged for Akira Iso to meet him in Tokyo and to take a room at the Okura Hotel. While the plane was crossing the Pacific Ocean, Tanner was planning his strategy. By the time the plane landed, he had worked out a win-win situation. The drive from Narita Airport took 1 hour, and Tanner was amazed by how Tokyo never seemed to change. In boom times and in depressions, the city always seemed to wear the same impassive face. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Akira Iso was waiting for him at the Fumiki Mashimo restaurant. Iso was in his 50s, with a spare figure, gray hair, and bright brown eyes. He stood up to greet Tanner. "It is an honor to meet you, Mr. Kingsley. Frankly, I was surprised to hear from you. I cannot imagine why you would come all this way to meet me." Tanner smiled. "I'm the bearer of good news that I thought was too important to discuss on the telephone. I think I'm going to make you a very happy man, and a very rich one." Akira Iso was looking at him curiously. "Yes." A white-jacketed waiter had come to the table. "Before we talk business, why don't we order?" "As you wish, Mr. Kingsley. Are you familiar with Japanese dishes, or shall I order for you?" "Thank you. I can order. Do you like sushi?" "Yes." Tanner turned to the waiter. "I'll have hamakitamaki, kaibashira, and amaebi." Akira Iso smiled. "That sounds good." He looked at the waiter. "I'll have the same." While they were eating, Tanner said, "You work for a very fine company." "Tokyo First Industrial." "Thank you. How long have you worked there?" 10 years. "That's a long time." He looked Akira Iso in the eye and said, "In fact, it might be time to make a change." "Why would I want to do that, Mr. Kingsley?" "Because I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. I don't know how much money you make, but I am willing to pay you twice as much to leave them and come to work for IG." "Mr. Kingsley, that is not possible." "Why not?" "If it's because of a contract, I can arrange." Akira Iso put down his chopsticks. "Mr. Kingsley, in Japan, when we work for a company, it is like a family. And when we can no longer work, they take care of us. But the money I'm offering you, no." Aisha Sishin. "What?" "It means that we put loyalty above money." Akira Iso looked at him curiously. Why did you choose me? Because I've heard very flattering things about you. I'm afraid you have taken a long trip for nothing, Mr. Kingsley. I would never leave Tokyo First Industrial. It was worth a try. There are no hard feelings. Tanner leaned back and laughed. Of course not. I wish all my employees were as loyal as you are. He remembered something. By the way, I brought you and your family a little gift. An associate of mine will bring it to you. He'll be at your hotel in an hour. His name is Harry Flint. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. A night maid found Akira Iso's body hanging from a hook in a wardrobe chest. The official verdict was suicide. Chapter 24. The Mandarin Hotel was a seedy, two-story building in the heart of Manhattan's Chinatown, 3 blocks from Mott Street. As Kelly and Diane got out of the taxi, Diane saw a large billboard across the street with a picture of Kelly in a beautiful evening gown, holding up a bottle of perfume. Diane looked at it in surprise. That's who you are. You're wrong, Kelly said. That's what I do, Mrs. Stevens. It's not who I am. She turned and walked into the lobby, and an exasperated Diane followed. A Chinese clerk was seated behind a desk in the small hotel lobby, reading a copy of the China Post. We would like a room for the night, Diane said. The clerk glanced up at the 2 elegantly dressed women and almost said aloud, "Here." He rose. Certainly. He took a closer look at their designer clothes. That will be $100 a night. Kelly looked at him, shocked. Hun. Diane said quickly, that will be fine. In advance. Diane opened her purse, took out some bills, and gave them to the clerk. He handed her a key. Room 10, straight down the hall, on the left. Do you have luggage? It's coming, Diane told him. If you need anything, just ask for Ling. Kelly said, Ling. Yes. She's your chambermaid. Kelly gave him a skeptical look. Right. The 2 women started down the dreary, dimly lit hallway. You paid too much, Kelly said. What's a safe roof over your head worth? I'm not so sure this place is such a good idea, Kelly said. It will have to do until we think of something better. Don't worry. Mr. Kingsley will take care of us. When they reached number 10, Diane unlocked the door and they stepped inside. The small room looked and smelled as though it had been unoccupied for a long time. There were twin beds with rumpled bed covers and 2 worn chairs next to a scarred desk. Kelly looked around. It may be small, but it sure is ugly. I'll bet it's never been cleaned. She touched a cushion and watched the dust rise. I wonder how long ago Ling passed away. It's only for tonight, Diane assured her. I'm going to phone Mr. Kingsley now. Kelly watched as Diane went to the telephone and called the number on the card that Tanner Kingsley had given her. The call was answered immediately. Tanner Kingsley. Diane sighed in relief. Mr. Kingsley, this is Diane Stevens. I'm sorry to bother you, but Kelly Harris and I need your help. Someone is trying to kill us and we have no idea what's going on. We're on the run. I'm very glad you called, Mrs. Stevens. You can relax. We just found out what's behind all this. You won't have any more problems. I can assure you that from now on, both you and Mrs. Harris will be perfectly safe. Diane closed her eyes for an instant. Thank God. Can you tell me who? I'll tell you all about it when I see you. Stay where you are. I'll have someone there to pick you up in 30 minutes. That's the connection was broken. Diane replaced the receiver and turned to Kelly, grinning. Good news. Our problems are over. What did he say? He knows what's behind all this and he says from now on, we're safe. Kelly gave a deep sigh. Great. Now I can go back to Paris and start my life over again. He's sending someone to pick us up in half an hour. Kelly looked around the dingy room. It will sure be hard to leave all this. Diane turned to her and said wistfully, it's going to be strange. What is? Going back to a life without Richard. I can't imagine how I'll be able to then. Don't, Kelly snapped. Don't take me there, lady, or I'll fall apart. I can't even think about it. Mark was my whole life, my only reason for living. Diane looked at Kelly's emotionless expression and thought, she's like a lifeless work of art, beautiful and cold. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. Kelly was seated on one of the beds, her back to Diane. She closed her eyes against the pain inside her and slowly, slowly, slowly. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. She was walking along the left bank with Mark, chatting about everything and nothing. Kelly felt that she had never been so completely comfortable with anyone before. She said to Mark, tomorrow evening there's a gallery opening if you're interested in. Oh, I'm sorry, Kelly. Tomorrow night I'm busy. Kelly felt an unexpected stab of jealousy. Going on another date. She tried to keep her tone light. No. No. I'm going alone. It's a banquet. He saw the look on Kelly's face. I mean it's just a dinner for scientists. You'd be bored. Would I? I'm afraid so. There will be a lot of words you've probably never heard before and I think I've heard them all, Kelly said, piqued. Why don't you try me? Well, I don't really think I'm a big girl. Go ahead. He sighed. All right. Anatripsology, malacostricology, aneroidograph, termagio, Kelly said, taken aback. Those kinds of words. I knew you wouldn't be interested. You were wrong. I am. Because you're interested. Asterisk asterisk asterisk. The banquet was held at the Hotel Prince de Galles and turned out to be a major event. There were 300 people in the ballroom, among them some of the most important dignitaries of France. One of the guests at the front table where Kelly and Mark were seated was an attractive man with a warm, engaging personality. I'm Sam Meadows, he said to Kelly. I've heard a lot about you. I've heard a lot about you, Kelly replied. Mark says you're his mentor and best friend. Sam Meadows smiled. I'm honored to be his friend. Mark is a very special person. We've worked together for a long time. He's the most dedicated. Mark was listening, embarrassed. Would you like some wine? He interrupted. The master of ceremonies appeared on stage, and the speeches began. Mark had been right about the evening being uninteresting for Kelly. Technical scientific prizes were being awarded, and as far as Kelly was concerned, the speakers could all have been talking in Swahili. But Kelly watched the enthusiasm on Mark's face, and she was glad she was there. When the dinner plates had been cleared, the president of the French Académie des Sciences appeared on stage. He began by praising the scientific accomplishments that France had made in the past year, and it was not until the end of his speech, when he held up a gold statuette and called out Mark Harris's name, that Kelly realized that Mark was the star of the evening. He had been too modest to tell her. That's why he tried to talk me out of coming. Kelly watched Mark get up and go on stage as the audience warmly applauded him. He never said a word to me about this, Kelly told Sam Meadows. Meadows smiled. That's Mark. He studied Kelly a moment. You know he's madly in love with you. He wants to marry you. He paused and said pointedly, I hope he doesn't get hurt. And as Kelly listened, she felt a sudden rush of guilt. I can't marry Mark. He's a dear friend, but I'm not in love with him. What have I been doing? I don't want to hurt him. It's better if I stop seeing him. I can never give a man what he would expect from a woman. How am I going to tell?